Desculpa pelo atraso. Eu gostaria de... Bom, como hoje nós temos um convidado internacional, nós vamos utilizar o idioma inglês como o idioma de comunicação. So, I would like to thank you, Professor François, pour votre présence ici. Donc, c'est extrêmement important pour nous de vous avoir ici avec l'UNIFES pour faire la discussion d'un sujet qui c'est très important, c'est très nouveau parce que notre université, c'est une université d'origine plus de l'éducation et de la santé. Mais on a maintenant des chercheurs très importants comme professeur Marlette qui nous aident beaucoup maintenant à développer des physics area. So thank you so much. On behalf of the Graduate Studies and Research Office, I would like to thank you for your acceptance, for being here. I'm sorry for the inconvenience of the system. And I would like to introduce our host today, which is Professor Marlette. So Professor Marlette, she's an associated professor at the Department of Physics at UniFesp, Campus Diadema. And she has experiences in 2 postdoctoral degrees in nuclear astrophysics. The first at CNES-SM laboratory in Orsay, France, and the second at the Physics Institute of USP in Brazil, master and doctorate at the Physics Institute of USP. And she has a lot of research collaboration, NEAR research group, and in 2 collaborations with the RIBRAS collaboration and LIA collaboration in France, with participation in experiments performed at GNU. And GNU is the institute of the Professor François, which is the Grand Accélérateur National Dion-Lourdes. And also Professor Marlette, she has a lot of line of interest and basically is in basic problems in nuclear physics and reaction and astrophysics interest. So Professor Marlette, thank you so much. Thank you very much for organizing this webinar. And I'll let Professor Marlette to introduce Professor François and to let the audience to know how you can interact with our invitee. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Camilo. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, but the inconvenience of the beginning. We appreciate everyone's presence. Initially, I would like to say a few thanks. I thank Researcher François for accepting my invitation to a seminar at International Webinar at UniFesp of the Nuclear and Hadrons Physics series. I thank you also, Professor Kanchan, who is my partner in organizing this event. We are grateful for the technical informatic support of the staff of UniFesp, in particular Michelle, Sarah Commerce, and staff of communication for the preparation of the art of this event. Before the seminar begins, some instruction for the participants. I would like to ask you, please, to keep the cameras closed and ask a question at the end of the presentation, please. If we see 75 people in the room, the transmission will be by streaming, and the question you have to be writing in the chat. Other sides, you can open the microphone to ask the question in order of the presentation in the chat, in the description of the chat, okay? I'm very happy to introduce the research François de Oliveira Santos. That is, I had the pleasure of the meeting in 2000 and 2001 during the shift in the lab of the Louvain-la-Neuve. François is the research director for the one of the largest and the best known accelerators in France, GANYIL Accelerator, theme of our seminar today. Francois has several important publications in the field of the nuclear physics, and he is the member of the LIA, the International Laboratory Association. Is this lab between Brazil and France created 2018, if not mistaken. Okay, thank you, Francois. Francois, all right. If you're ready, we can start, please. Okay, to ask when I would like change the slide, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. So, bom dia, muito obrigado pela introdução e pelo seu convite. Infelizmente, meu português é ruim, so eu vou falar inglês. So, good morning. So, I am from GANYIL in France, and I would like to talk about my laboratory, GANYIL. This is kind of advertisement of the laboratory. I won't talk much about science, but also about science, not only about invitation to come to GANYIL and to come to France. I'm doing that because I have been asked to talk about GANYIL, but also because we are making a great effort to welcome people here at GANYIL. So we are very happy to welcome you. If you want to come, if you want to join, if you want to do an experiment, you are very welcome here at GANYIL. So can you go next slide, please? So the outline of my presentation is the following. I will talk about some kind of tourism aspects, and then I will talk about my laboratory, GANYIL, the accelerator, present what we have, what kind of beams we have, and what kind of physics we do, and then the conclusion. So it will be relatively short. So a few words about tourism, because I want to, to show you that we have also some touristic and interesting aspects also. Please, next. So if you want to go to GANYIL, you have to first take the plane from São Paulo to Paris. It is 12 hours flight. Next, please. And then you have to take the train. You go from Paris to Caen, the city of Caen. Caen is located in the west side of France, very close to the sea, 10 kilometers from the sea. And you take a fast train, 1 hour by train, 1 hour and a half. Yes, next slide. In most of the time, people coming here, they come from, the tourists come from the Second World War remains about D-Day. You probably know the D-Day that happened in Normandy, and there are many remains, many museums about that, and you can visit different remains about this special historical day. Next slide. And there are many other aspects. I don't want to go to the details, but of course there is very nice landscapes. You probably know the Mont Saint-Michel village, and paintings from of this region is very famous. Also Claude Monet, for example. And there are of course also very good cheese that you have to test, like Camembert. You can go to the city of Camembert, for example, to visit. Next slide. So when you arrive at Caen, you will take a bus or a tramway to go to GANYIL, to the laboratory, and you will see the castle that is in the center of the city. The castle is a very old one. It's 1,000 years old. It comes from William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror, you don't know, but he was a Duke of Normandy, and he won a battle against the English people. It was in England, in Battle of Hastings, and then he became the King of England. And from that time, a part of Normandy is also, let's say, in England also. For example, the grand 30 times grand daughter of William the Conqueror is Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth II is the grand-daughter of William the Conqueror. And you can also visit, of course, many other interesting touristic places, like the tomb of William the Conqueror, and also different abbey of this king. Next slide, please. So about my lab. So the name is from GANIL is for Grand Accélérateur National Zhongluo, so large national heavy ion accelerator. Next slide. So that started, we built this, it was in the 80s, the first beam came in 1983, and we are somehow, let's say, related. We have this kind of filiation, parentage with the big people of nuclear physics, that is Pierre and Marie Curie and Langevin also. As you can see, for example, Pierre and Marie Curie, they got a daughter, Irene, who got another daughter, Hélène Joliot-Curie, a physicist also. She worked at Orsay University. She's retired now, but I met her, I worked with her, and she married with Michel Langevin, who is a son of Paul Langevin, the physicist. And Michel Langevin was at the beginning at GANIL. He worked at GANIL. So as you see, there is also some tradition of nuclear physics from the very beginning of GANIL. Next slide, please. Today we are about 45 physicists. That includes 30 permanent positions and 15 PhD students in general. And we are about 200 staff that include engineers, technicians, and also many visitors. In fact, as I said, we really welcome the physicists here at GANIL to do their experiments in different kinds of physics. It's about something like 700 visitors every year. About the beams we have, what you can use. In fact, if you are interested, you can use different beams. Next slide. So this is the lab as it is. There is the biggest building corresponds to the old machine that is with stable beams mainly. And there is a new machine that is called Spiral 2. This is in the Brown building that correspond to a new machine, as I said, new possibilities. Next slide. So about here, what you have is the different options that you can have at GANIL. So what you can get is you can get low energy beams. Can you click one more just to see if you have some? Can you go next slide? If you can have the energies. No?
I don't know.
Next slide, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, here it is, no problem. So you can get low energy beams from 0.3 to 1 MeV per nucleon that correspond to low energy for us. And you can get carbon to uranium ions. And this you can use for your physics you are of interest. I mean, if you are interested by low energy beams, you can use this beam. In parallel, so in the same time, you can use a medium energy beam that is in fact produced, that is in between 3.7 and 13.7 MeV per nucleon. In general, it is used for atomic physics, medical application, or atomic physics, solid state physics in general. And the third beam you can use is number 3, next slide, yes, is what we call high energy beam, that is between 24 and 95 MeV per nucleon. And you do, in general, nuclear physics studies. And you can have the 3 states, the three beams, the 3 experiments in parallel. So that's a very efficient way to use the beam. Next slide. If you are interested by radioactive beams, there are some interesting aspects of using radioactive beams. we can produce radioactive beams and post-accelerate the beams. And this is what we call spiral 1. And you can get from helium to krypton beams from 1.2 to 25 MeV per nucleon with this second new accelerator, post-acceleration. So you have the different palettes of different beams, a palette of different beams. Yes, you can go to the next one. Yes. I'm going, okay. Here, this is spiral 2. This is another kind of accelerator. It's a linear accelerator. You can have proton or deuteron or heavy ion beams up to 33 MeV per nucleon for the proton, 40 or 14.5 MeV per nucleon for heavy ions. But it's a new machine. It's not really yet started. We are in the commissioning time. We are providing the very first beams for the physics. And what is very important that we can have very intense beams, up to, in principle, 5 milliampere. That is, I think, the most intense beam in the world, in fact, we can get here. And for the heavy ion, we will be able to get 1 milliampere. That is not yet available. Next slide. With this very intense beam, for example, with deuterium beam, you can use it to fragment the beam and to produce neutrons. So you have a kind of broad distribution of neutrons produced by the fragmentation of deuterium ion onto a thick target. And you have in this curve, in this plot, you have the distribution of the neutron in black, the two black lines, in fact, that correspond to the production rate in neutron per centimeter square per second as a function of the energy. And you see that the peak is about
Mas você pode olhar as perguntas do chat para mim?
Just, Marlette, your microphone is open, just to tell you. No problem. And what you can do also is to produce also monoenergetic beams.
Okay.
And for that, no, I can hear you. I can hear you if you want. One second. Not yet. And you can also have monoenergetic beams of neutrons. So you can produce it with, for example, a proton beam, and you induce a PN reaction on lithium-7 target. And then you have a monochromatic beam of neutrons. And then you can do your experiment with the beam of neutrons. Next slide. So I'm going now to give few examples of physics of studies that we have done and we would like to do with an accelerator. It's just very limited, a few examples. Not really, we have many examples. Please, next slide. So when we built GANYL, the idea was to use it to produce a collision between heavy ions. So it's something like tin on tin nuclei to make a big collision with a lot of nucleon, neutron and protons, and to study the collision of the two. And so the main project was something like INDRA. INDRA is a very, it's a 4-pi ensemble of detectors made with ionization chamber, silicon detectors, cesium iodine, etc. You combine all those detectors, many detectors together to get to detect all the particles of the collision, a kind of let's say CERN Atlas, for example, detector which detect all the particles coming from the collisions between the two particles. This was improved by new detectors that is called PHASIA. Now it is able to detect not only, it's a 4-pi, so it detects all particles. It is able to detect not only the mass of the particles, but also to identify the Z of the particles. As you can see with the plot in the lower right, the identification point. It's a delta E or time of flight. I don't remember. Delta E plot. Next slide. So an example of a study. So you can study many things, of course, with that. With this detector, You can study, for example, the equation of state of nuclear matter. You can study the N over Z dependence of the nuclear level density, multi-particle correlations, for example. That's also a very interesting subject. Nuclear symmetry energy. I just give the last publication they wrote about using this detector that was published in Physical Regulators last year. And the idea was to determine through this, through the study of the collision, it was xenon on tin. It was to study what we call the chemical equilibrium constant. That is a kind of parameter that gives you the number of nuclei, for example, helium-6, helium-4, helium-3, as a function of the density of the collision. And that kind of parameter, so chemical equilibrium constant, that you need it to calculate, for example, astrophysical events like supernovae explosions, for example. And you put these parameters into the theoretical descriptions of these big astrophysical events, and that allows you to understand what happened in these astrophysical collisions. Next slide, please. I take another completely different example. So the first example was two heavy nuclei at high energy. Now I go to extremely low energy. I go to what we call IRSUD, so it's just a little below 1 MeV per nucleon. There are a lot of people working in this place. In fact, it's very, very busy line. And in fact, also the Brazilians, they are very good in this this kind of work. They come. There is several groups coming here doing experiments, and what they do is they irradiate different chemical compounds, mainly ice compounds, ice mixtures, and this is also related to nuclear astrophysics. In fact, my main subject, my main interest is nuclear astrophysics, and you will see it in the presentation. I'm talking mainly about nuclear astrophysics. But it is also related, for example, for some, there are also, of course, many other interests, not only astrophysics, of course. And here it is for nuclear, it is for astrophysics. And so here, good idea. No, you can go next slide. I go a little bit in details of one kind of experiment they did. So a friend of mine, Jean Dupart, that you can see here, he went to the Antarctica and they collected meteorites, in fact, not big meteorites, but very tiny micro meteorites, very dust of particles coming from space. And you find it because it is very easy. You just melt the ice, and you get water. In the water, you have some dust, and the dust, most of the dust comes from space. And in between, and they published a lot. They had a lot of very good, very nice results. Very nice results they obtained. And some of the dust, they are in fact pollution. They are pollution from Earth, from wind pollution, for example. And they found in the dust, they found some dust with a lot of carbon. And they found that that's from Earth, it's a pollution. And they call it penguin shit because it was from full of carbon, so kind of probably pollution, biological pollution. But finally, they demonstrated that it comes from space. So it was a big highlight of this study because to find very high carbon content on micrometeorite, of course, it is linked to, for example, origin of life, questions like that. And so they thought about the origin of these ultra-carboneous micrometeorites. From where, which, I mean, on Earth, you understand the origin can be a biological origin, but from space, what is the origin of these very high, very rich, carbon-rich meteorites? Next slide. And they found, in fact, an idea that it could be irradiation from what we call cosmic rays. There are a lot of cosmic rays, high energy particles coming from space that irradiate some ices and making through chemical reaction carbon-rich compound mixture. And they proposed that could be, to irradiate, you have to irradiate a certain kind of ice to make this carbon-rich ice and carbon-rich dust. And they propose that it could be some material coming from beyond the Neptune area, so very far from in the solar system. And for that, they try to demonstrate it. So what they did, they produced some kind of ice that is with abundance that looks like what is available beyond Neptune. And they irradiated with different ions, like cosmic rays at low energy, to see if this irradiation produce carbon-rich elements. And this is what they observed. This is what they obtained. So it was very nice experiment and very nice results they obtained. Yes, it could be, in fact, what we have found in Antarctica. It's a kind of material coming from beyond Neptune, not in the solar system, but beyond Neptune. Next slide, please. So probably what is most famous in Ganil is what we call LISE, the LISE spectrometer, 0 degree spectrometer, because it is a place where for the first time they produce radioactive beams. For the first time they study radioactive, what we call exotic also. We call it exotic beams. And we do that by using high energy beams like carbon at 95 per nucleon, and you fragment the beam onto a target that you put at the entrance of this spectrometer. You have a lot of products from the fragmentation of the two nuclei, and you select one of the nuclei by different means. So I don't go to the details, but you can use magnetic field, electric field, you can use materials to slow down and select the ions. And in the end, you get what you have in the right side. You have different points that correspond to different nuclei. One by one, you detect the nuclei. This is energy versus time of flight of the particles. And they make a kind of cluster, different clusters of points. Each cluster corresponds to one isotope. And you can see in red, for example, the few points that you have here correspond to nickel-48 nuclei that were produced from the fragmentation of a nickel-58 beam onto a nickel-58 target. So you send nickel on nickel, you make fragmentation of the two, and you find about 1 per day of this nickel-48 at the end of the line. This was the discovery of this new isotope. It was a big highlight of the lab. For those who work on nuclear physics, they probably know the code that is called LISE++. LISE++ is now used everywhere in the world, and it comes from, of course, the LISE spectrometer. It allows you to calculate the production rate of the nuclei you want to produce, you want to study. And one of the fathers, not only, there are several fathers, but one of the fathers of this is Marek Levitovich, who was here awarded by the president of Poland quite recently. Next slide, please. Here, this is a slide I found on the internet, and you have several important people who discovered new isotopes. And we are very proud of this because you can find here Alinka Lepin-Zili, you know probably from University of São Paulo, and a group of several Brazilian people here. I don't go to details, including Rubens Lichtenthaler. And they came not at LISE, but it was at another place with another system, but they work on different on the search for discovery of new isotopes, and we were very lucky at Ganil because we could discover many nuclei, and one of the, you can see also on top right, you can see also Dominique Guillemot-Muller, who was also very lucky in this discovery. She discovered many nuclei also in the neutron-rich side of the nucleus, of the nuclear shard. Next slide, please. We, of course, we have different beams, including radioactive beams, and we have different detectors. And one of the detectors that we mounted quite recently is what is called ACTAR-TPC, an active target. What is it? An active target is target, first of all, that is material that you can use to induce reactions, but in the same time, it is a detector that allows you to detect energy, timing, angles of the particles. It's a kind of camera that allows you to see one by one the different events, the different collisions of the particles. And this was also, it is working. It is mounted right now at Canil. And two of the fathers of this kind of detector are Antonio Villari, you probably know, and Wolfgang Mittig also. The two physicists, I put the two names here because they were for quite a long time in São Paulo. So they are from São Paulo. Mittig stayed for at least 1 year, I think, I'm quite sure, in São Paulo. And he's very, very well-known physicist, and now he's working at Michigan State University in the United States. And just to give you an example, the very last publication about using this detector was submitted to Nature Communication. I think it was accepted. It is what we can say 4-dimensional imaging of the proton radioactivity of nickel-54. What does that mean? It means that we produced nickel-54, we selected it, we implanted the nickel-54 in the detector, and we studied the radioactivity of this nucleus. And it emits protons, and we saw protons in 3D, so in space, but also the lifetime of the nucleus. So it's kind of 4-dimensional because you add the lifetime also, the time when it decays. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I also chose this example. So it's not an experiment that was published, but it's an experiment that is scheduled for June this year. And it shows what we can also do. This is another example with this active target. So the idea that was proposed by several colleagues, including Valdir Guimarães, Marlet, Sanson, and other collaborators. I don't have all the photos, but what we want to do, in fact, in this experiment is to use an helium-8 beam and to make collisions with helium gas to produce the barium-12 that decays by several channels. That includes helium-4 plus helium-8 or helium-6 plus helium-6 and other channels. And this is what we call clusterization effect, cluster inside the nucleus. So that's a very interesting aspect that you are in Brazil, in São Paulo, one of the specialists in the world about that. And it has also some interesting aspects in nuclear astrophysics also. Thank you. Next slide. I give another example at another room, another experimental area that is called VAMOS. VAMOS is a large magnetic spectrometer. It's very large, very open. You can see the characteristics is 130 millisteradian with dispersion of 20 millimeter per percent, and acceptance of about plus minus 15% in momentum. It's very large, very open. It allows you to do a lot of experiments, including experiments with radioactive beams, when the quality of the beam is not that good. It's quite, let's say, broad, or not quite. The spot of the beam is not very well defined. It could be a little bit broader. That makes more difficult the detection of the particles. Can you go next slide? Yes. Here is a result, one of the last results that was published about using this equipment. So it's a little bit. I don't want to go into the details of that, but just to tell you in a short time. So we induce this reaction that you see here. It's oxygen 14 that is radioactive. We sent it onto a target that was composed of hydrogen, and so we induce this hydrogen. So it's diffusion of proton, and we observe the oxygen 14 nucleus with the VAMOS in coincidence with the proton that is diffused, that is scattered. And doing so, you can determine, you can reconstruct what we call the spectrum excitation function that you see here, and on the top left. And this is a cross-section or differential cross-section as a function of the energy. So yeah, there is a plot here, and you can analyze it. It's quite complicated. I don't go to the details, but you can recognize the first peak corresponds to the ground state, the second peak corresponds to the first excited state, and there is a dip in the right side where it is with red points, and this corresponds to the third excited state. We studied it, and we compare the states we have measured here with what is known in the mirror nucleus. Mirror nucleus is carbon 15. And we can compare the position of the states and the properties of the states. And if you compare it, for example, this is in the right side on top, what is called experimental. You compare for fluorine 15, and you compare it also for fluorine 16 that we also have measured. You compare the position of the states, and you see that, in fact, there is an asymmetry. In fact, we expect that in nuclear physics, the force is the same between neutron and proton, and between neutron and proton should be the same. But you observe some difference. You observe some difference that you can see, not that large, but you see a difference. The nuclear force, we can call it, is weaker between neutron and proton is weaker when we are in a nucleus that is proton-rich, and it is stronger on the other side when it is neutron-rich, the mirror nucleus. And we know one effect that can explain that is the fact that in one side, in the neutron-rich side, it is bound. It is bound for the emission of proton. It is bound. But for the other side, in the proton-rich side, it is unbound. The proton is emitted, in fact. It is not bound. So that difference makes a difference in the nuclear force. And we can calculate that, and we did it. And then you can see that for fluorine 16, it is close to 1. That means the correction is enough to explain the difference between the two. That is just an effect of what we call coupling with continuum, coupling with the fact that it is unbound. But for fluorine 15, it is not good. You see that there is still a big difference between fluorine 15 and carbon 15. It looks like the proton force, the proton-proton force, is very different from the neutron-neutron force. That is not at all in agreement with what we have measured up to now. And one explanation of that could be the fact that the two protons, maybe they combine to make a kind of nucleus that is called helium-2. Helium-2 is unbound in reality. In laboratory, it is unbound. But in this nucleus, inside the nucleus, it might be bound, quasi-bound, or a kind of cluster inside the fluorine 15 nucleus. And this is related to what we call, you probably know what is called the Hoyle state. The Hoyle state is a very interesting state that exists in carbon 12. It is the state, yes, you see here, it is a state that explains the origin of carbon in the universe. I mean, the combination of helium allows the production of carbon 12 through the reaction between the three nuclei, the three alpha particles. So this state that is located very close to the alpha emission threshold is in fact a cluster nucleus, like in fluorine 15, like a helium-2 cluster state. Here it is an alpha cluster state in carbon-12. So the two cases looks like the same, and we are now thinking about this deeply. Next slide, please. So I go to my conclusion in a few slides, 2 slides. So I hope I did it very short. I hope that I made it attractive for you. There are calls for proposals. The next one is this month, the 26th of this month. It's probably too late to make a new one in a short time, but there are regularly call for proposals. The next one will be at the end of the year, so in a few months. Yeah, the deadline is really short now. But you are very welcome to propose experiments if you have good ideas. It's open for everybody. It's a free access. It's not only available for nuclear physics, as I've shown, but also for many other applications, medical applications, as I said, even technological application also, industrial application that exists also, solid state physics, etc., etc. Nuclear data also that are also very important. For example, with the neutron, there are still some data that are not known and interesting to measure for nuclear industry. Of course, I propose you to come to France, but you know the situation presently is not very good because of the pandemic, and of course it's not the best moment for that. But better time will come soon, I hope, and you will be very welcome to join here in Galilee, to join or to propose experiments. And of course, there is a good environment to welcome you with a guest house here and restaurant. The next slide is just to show you that, as Marlette told you, Marlette Assumption told you, there is a collaboration between France and Brazil. In fact, the coordinator for France is Ubiraja van Kolk from Orsay University, IRM Joliot-Curie Lab. The budget that we have is 15 kilo each year, something like that. It helps you. It can be. I mean, you can apply. If you have an idea, if you have an experiment, if you want to come, you can apply and you can get financial support to come. It will help you to pay the travel or the stay in France, at least a part of it. So if you are interested by this, if you are interested, if you want to come, if you want to join, if you want to propose something, you can apply. You will be very welcome. Just contact me if you want, and then I will tell you what to do. So, muito obrigado pela atenção.
Okay, Francois, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. 2 minutes.
If you have questions.
Okay. Thank you, Francois, for excellent presentation. To organize, please. Okay. To organize, I'm going to call the name. The person opens the microphone and ask the question, please. Please click little, I don't know, have the little hand here or not? No. Okay. Let's go to the question for Francois. Okay.
Thank you, Alexandra, for the
comment. Francois, please. Okay. Oh, I have, I don't know here. Okay. Francois, I have the question for you.
Please.
To say about the difficulties of the situation, but I have how the accelerator working at the moment with this situation of the pandemic.
So we are ready to work alone. In fact, we made it possible. That is, in principle, we work with a lot of collaborators from the world, from all around the world. But of course, the present situation most often does not allow this. But in the same time, in fact, for the European people, it is possible to travel. It is no, I don't say it is, there is no problem. There are problems, but it is possible to travel. So we had several collaboration. We had several experiments with people from different countries, including UK, Spain, from what I know. For the Brazilian people, I have to say that the situation is really the worst I've seen in my life. I think they are about to close the border with Brazil, from the last information I got today, because of the very bad situation that you and we have also. And okay, let's of course this will finish one day, of course, next time.
In your presentation, there are one slide about the production of the neutron beams.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I cannot to put is mine. What's the energy, the flux of the neutron beam?
So see if you can show the slide. In fact, the energy, it's a kind of there are two options. You can get continuum up to something like, I don't remember precisely, it's something like 40 MeV, I think. From let's say 0 to 40. Yes, if you can find it. And with an optimum at 14 MeV, 14 MeV in total.
Accelerator open neutron. Sorry. Yeah.
And for the intensity, depends on the position, depends what you want to do. At the closest position of the source, what you get is, I don't have the number in mind, but extremely high. It is the most intense neutron beam you can get at that energy in the world. If you take it at a larger distance, if you, in your experiment, you need it located at larger distance for time of flight, for example, something like that. Measurement, if you want to measure time of flight, or if you want to determine the energy of the neutrons, you need time of flight. And then you need to put your system at quite large distance. Then, of course, the flux reduces proportionally to the inversely proportional to the square of the distance, of course. And another option is to produce the neutrons from a reaction like lithium 7PN reaction. And then what you get is you can select the energy you want, in fact, more or less, and you have a quasi mono-energetic beam. So that's okay, the two options.
Okay.
For the intensity, also I have it in my plot. It should be something like 10 to the 8 neutron per square centimeter per second. 10 to the 8.
Sorry, I have one problem here. My gosh. Here. I lost you. Okay. And Yes, Iga.
Yeah, Renato's question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello? So
Okay.
it's working? So I don't know what's going on?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
it's working.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice talk, Francois. I have a question concerning fluorine 15. So you went. I lost some of the details, but do you have the quantum numbers of this excited Hoyle-like state? And what are the energy difference between among the other nearby levels, please?
Yes, alors I have it by head. Just 1 second. I try to find the slide. I have it.
Marlete, could you please?
Yes, I tried.
Yeah. So I don't know precisely. But it is something like, yeah, if you have.
Can you see?
Even in the slide, it is not written. No, I don't see it, but.
You're not sharing the screen, Marlete.
Yes, I
No?
don't see it. Yeah.
Sorry.
But
it's open.
so
Michel, faço mesmo.
So this oil state is located something like, let's say, 200 keV above alpha plus alpha plus alpha. So it's very close to the threshold, 200 keV. And the state of carbon 15, the one with the helium-2 cluster, a kind of helium-4 cluster, is located 130 keV above the threshold. So it looks like the same. Somehow.
Peraí.
Clica no ícone para compartilhar, professor, à direita do da câmera e compartilha a tela.
Tem que estar aberto.
Ok, só abrir o PowerPoint agora.
Ele está aberto, mas eu ponho em modo cheio, é isso?
Isso.
Deu?
Deu, agora deu.
Ok.
Deu.
Where I'm sorry, Francois.
No problem. Sorry.
What's
was
the
a problem? Technical problem we had.
What's the
last slides? Probably 2 or 3 before the end.
Yes, just before conclusion. The last slide before conclusion.
Oh. Sorry.
Was the previous one with the energy levels?
I'm lost here. Here? No?
Go ahead. One more.
No. Here?
Oh, but do you have the quantum numbers, Francois? Did they measure angular momentum parity and things like that?
For the 2 cases, it corresponds to transfer momentum of 0 equals 0. For carbon 12 and for fluorine 15, it is a kind of helium-2 with L equals 0. It's kind of yeah. Yes, okay. I have the quantum numbers if you want, if you are interested. Yeah. But it's L equals 0, in fact.
Oh, it's half minus. I see. Half minus state is on the slide, all right?
Oh, yes, half minus state. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And since the carbon 13, the core of nucleus, is 1/2 minus, also, so it means the helium-2 is a kind of L equals 0.
Yeah, L equals
0. We split 0 total split.
All right. Thank you.
Some of the questions.
Marlete,
Oi.
I'd like to ask some naive questions.
Welcome, please.
Okay, I'm not an expert and not at all from the field, but I have some naive questions. A couple of them. One, I understood, first of all, it's very interesting. You mentioned that there is a difference in the neutron-neutron and proton-proton interaction when one goes to neutron-rich or proton-rich nuclei. So this is, I just wanted to make sure that I understand this is not something which is happening in normal, let's say, magic number nucleus, but it is something especially in case of when we are going towards the drip line, either proton drip or neutron drip.
Exactly. Yes, perfect. Exactly. And of course, when we are going to the drip line, that means coupling with continuum. We are closer and closer to the continuum. In the case of fluorine-15, we are completely in the continuum.
I see. So maybe this, again, I'm not an expert, but I think this kind of results will be important in studies of neutron stars, maybe? This should be
everything that is a lot dealing with astrophysics, because astrophysics is always coupling with continuum. It's always building up nuclei from free nuclei to build new nuclei. So it's always coupling with continuum. Yeah. Astrophysics in general.
I see. That's really interesting. I really enjoyed your talk. And the second naive question, the second again is a naive question. Is you were talking about neutron beam, and but neutrons are unstable, so they are like 8 minutes half-life. So how does one? This must be technical. I don't know how experimentalists handle this. I'm also a theorist. So if the neutron is unstable particle, how does it decay before it reaches a target? How are these? Yeah.
That's also a good question. So, in fact, it is produced in flight. That means you have a beam, for example, deuterium. So, and you break the nucleus. So you produce neutron and proton. The proton are stopped with some big collimator that you see on at the bottom of this image. You have a collimator. So it's kind of really material that stops the beam. There is also a dipole, magnetic dipole that removes the charged particles also. And for the neutron, in fact, it flies, but it goes quite fast. In fact, so to reach the other side of the room, you have a photo at the bottom right. You have a photo. It's about something like 20 meters, 30 meters. It takes really short time. It takes microseconds. It is microseconds to reach the other side for the slowest one. And that means, in fact, it has no time to decay, because lifetime is in minutes.
Yes.
Here it's about microseconds.
Okay.
But for we have also to take care of the radioactivity of neutrons. So in the at the end of the line, there is a neutron dump. You see it on the top left. There is a system that is called neutron beam dump, system that catches the neutron and somehow keeps the neutron inside this beam dump, to avoid pollution from beta decay of neutrons and also radioactivity induced by the neutrons.
I see. Yeah, okay. The kind of questions I would remember from undergraduate.
Thank you very much. That's good. Good question.
Thank you.
Some question, Kanchan, in the chat?
Well, I asked questions and.
Please.
Sorry. Just. Okay. Some question or audience?
Can I ask again?
Yeah, Renato.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I went to get a ride on Kanchan's question regarding the proton-proton and neutron-neutron. Do you guys somehow take off the Coulomb part in the proton-proton to get to this conclusion? I hope so, but so which kind of model do you use? Because it's not there is some ambiguity to exclude the Coulomb interactions.
You are perfectly right. It's not that easy at all. That somehow you have to take a kind of Kopf model to decalculate the Coulomb energy that you have to take into account to determine what remains, that is the nuclear force. And for that, there is a kind of, it's not uncertainty, but there is a normal option that you take, that is, they are not clusterized. So you can calculate, you can, for example, take it as a uniform sphere, and you can calculate the energy. You have different options you can calculate. So one option, in general, you can separate in two options. One is, let's say, they are quite separated in distance, that is also in energy, or they are clusterized, so you have to take a kind of higher Coulomb energy. And depending on the option, you get different results, of course. And that you can take into account.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renato. Are there more questions?
I don't see in the chat. I don't see anything in the chat, Marlette, just to tell you.
Thank you. Okay, Francois. We thanks Francois once again for present us with your presentation and honor our event. Maybe do you want to say something?
I would like to thank you. Muito obrigado para vocês. Once again, I really would like to welcome you here in France. I hope some of you will be able to join one day and to come here and to join one of our experiments. I will be very happy.
We appreciate the presence of everyone. Thank you. Thank you, François. Mais uma vez, François, muito obrigada.
Muito obrigado.
Da sua parte, nos presentear com a sua apresentação. Okay. Thank you for your attention. Bye.
Bye.